All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Terence Crawford responds to Jose Ramirez and critics that say Jose Ramirez will beat Terence Crawford at 147 pounds. He cuts straight to the chase and says, I will crush Jose Ramirez at 147 pounds. This fight, though, I do believe is definitely worth thinking about and looking into more deeply because it has one of the more high likelihoods of taking place, or a higher likelihood of taking place than many of the Terence Crawford fights that we talk about or that we want to see. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Hey, and if you're not subscribed, I hope you accept my invitation. Hit the subscribe button. If you've not hit the bell icon, make sure you hit the bell icon and select where you get notified of all the content that we release. Also, thank you to everybody that supports the channel as a channel member, people that support on Patreon, and people that come by the live streams Monday through Friday and on Saturday morning. Make sure you guys come by the live streams that we do or check them out on Archive. It's one of the better features of the channel. But let's get into this particular topic, one that I think is very, very interesting. And that is the back and forth that's going on between Terence Crawford and Jose Ramirez. Now, during this time of the coronavirus and the fact, where all these promotional companies are having a hard time putting on shows, fights are getting canceled. There's conversations about fighters taking lower paydays, and many on there's a very big chance that the fights might not take place this year. It's easy to look back and look at it and kind of get disheartened. But fights like Terence Crawford versus Jose Ramirez, I think, is a fight that is so likely to take place that it is definitely worth taking a serious look into, because I do believe this is something that Top Rank has planned not too far down the road, and a fight that is more dangerous for Terence Crawford than a lot of people believe. Now, why is Terence Crawford responding to Jose Ramirez? Right now, first, Jose Ramirez is, just in case you don't know, Jose Ramirez is the WBO and the WBC 140-pound champion. And those are belts that were prior to Jose Ramirez holding them, and all of the belts at 140 pounds, really, they were all held by Terence Crawford before Terence Crawford moved up and fought Jeff Horn for the welterweight title. And so Jose Ramirez and now Josh Taylor, who are both two top-ranked fighters, now hold all the belts in those divisions. Eventually, though, because 140 pounds is not a money division, and because Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez started their careers at 135 pounds and are both bigger, naturally very big 140 pounders, and historically speaking, being a big 140 pounder tells you what you are. You are a welterweight. So Jose Ramirez is, for the majority of the history of boxing, if even fighting at 140 would be considered a welterweight, right? Because there was no 140-pound weight class. But Jose Ramirez is, or Josh Taylor, depending on who wins the fight or how that gets set up, even though I'm not 100% sure that fight is going to take place, for similar reasons that I believe that the Terence Crawford versus Jose Ramirez fight will take place. Now, Jose Ramirez said, about the question of Terence Crawford, he says, don't look at me as the Jose Ramirez at 140 pounds. Think of me as the 147-pound Jose Ramirez. And so he says when he gets up to 147 pounds, that he's going to be a much stronger, he's going to be a bigger, stronger fighter, and he's going to be able to do more things at 147 than he can at 140. Now, that's not out of the question it's not out of the question that that's the truth, because that has been the case with many fighters who start off at a weight class that is essentially too small for them, and they wind up losing and draining a lot of weight down so that they can fight at that weight class. You see that with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford began his career at 140, but in order to get a championship, he moved down to 135, and he was almost emaciated at 135. So you see him having fights with guys that went the distance, like Ricky Burns. But if that fight between Terence Crawford and Ricky Burns had taken place at 140, there's a good chance that Terence Crawford might have got Ricky Burns out of there, because Terence Crawford would have been able to do strength and conditioning training, in his training camps. He wouldn't be focused. He wouldn't have to drain himself so far down below his walk around weight. And, when you do that, you weaken your body. So when Terence Crawford moved up to 140 pounds, he wound up getting more knockouts than he did at 135. When he got up to 147 pounds, everybody's getting knocked out. Everybody that he's fought got knocked out, right? So his power definitely carried or improved from 135 to 140. There's a question about whether it improved from 140 to 147, but at the least you get what Jose Ramirez is talking about. So Jose Ramirez says that he's going to be stronger at 147. Not Danny Garcia, but Mikey Garcia, who is friends with Jose Ramirez and also one of the best fighters in the sport of boxing, without a doubt. Mikey Garcia is a beast. But Mikey Garcia says that he thinks that Jose Ramirez can beat Terence Crawford when Terence Crawford gets up to when he goes up to 147, for the same reasons, that Jose Ramirez is a very big, very strong fighter, right? So the idea that Jose Ramirez could be stronger at 147 than he was at 140 is really not strange, man. It's not something that is far-fetched. It could be the case. Now, can he beat Terence Crawford? At this point in time, I do not believe that he can. However, I do believe for the next couple years, I would give the advantage to Terence Crawford. But here's the thing that I think eventually is going to be funny about this fight, and that is Top Rank. I am not shy about telling about my beliefs that you got to put a certain level of, you got to put like a crooked meter in any type of fight that Top Rank's involved in, and think, okay, yeah, I see that Jose Ramirez is a fighter. I see Terence Crawford as a fighter. I believe Terence Crawford would beat Jose Ramirez, but, and you might say it's a, 60-40 type of fight, right? Say it's a 60-40 type of fight. But then you've got to think, okay, Top Rank. What does Top Rank want out of this fight, right? And as soon as that fight is made, I'm not talking about like right this second where we're analyzing what will happen, but I'm talking about this is something that I do when the fight is made. Okay, similar to Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, I think it fits into the same thing. It also, worked with Manny Pacquiao in many of the fights that Manny Pacquiao had. And here it is. With Terence Crawford has a current value as a fighter, right? A current value, because I'm going to try to do a little bit of an equation. And this equation is going to be, who are we going to screw over equation? That's probably the best way to describe it. Who does Top Rank want to win the fight? And once Top Rank makes the fight happen, you can rest assured that they have enough inside information that their calculation is going to work. And here is the calculation as I see it. You take the current value of a fighter, right? The current value of the fighter, however you determine that metric for yourself, right? But Terence Crawford is a top pound for pound fighter right now. He is a draw, right? So he can sell tickets, right? He's reliable to win fights. But you might say, hey, his current value right now is a 4, right? He's a 4-level fighter. There are 1-level fighters who are bums, 2-level fighters that, are prospects that we may not believe in, 3 average level fighters, 4 are very, very good fighters who can get you wins, who can beat one of the top 2 people in the weight classes, and say number 5 is like somebody that is going to be a big financial boom, right? So an Oscar De La Hoya could be a 5, while a Guillermo Rigondeaux was probably like a 3 or a 2 to Bob Arum, right? I believe that Terence Crawford is probably a 4 to Bob Arum, but Vasily Lomachenko, he believed, was a 5. He probably believes that Tyson Fury is a 5, right? Well, what do they believe about about Jose Ramirez. How's Jose Ramirez implied value? Because right now he's not peaked to where he is. So you have to think, how good could he be? Well, he's Mexican. He's a decent looking guy. He's going to be able to sell a lot of tickets in LA, Bob, out there in California and on pay-per-view if they're lucky. And Bob Arum values Mexican fighters and Ukrainian fighters very highly. So I suspect that what he would look at it is like this. We have the current value of Terence Crawford being a 4, but we have the potential or the implied value of Jose Ramirez. He can actually be a 5. So not just a good fighter that we know that we can get wins, but somebody we can put on pay-per-view and could become the cash cow of the sport. Or Terence Crawford is a 4, but where will he be in a year? He might be down, or 2 years. He might be down to a 3 if he slips. But Jose Ramirez could be moving up to a 4 level fighter. So they're not going to make that fight, right? Because they're gambling, right? And they're gambling on an inside fight. So it's not like the type of gamble you would make between a fighter like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, where it's like, if Terence Crawford wins, then we get the money for this fight. His value might go up and allow us to, make more money on his future fights, right? But if Errol Spence Jr. wins, Terence Crawford he's just taking a hit, right? And Errol Spence Jr. goes off about his business. There's no value for us in an Errol Spence Jr. win. But in the scenario with Jose Ramirez, there's values both ways. But what they're going to do is they're going to wait to make the fight until they feel comfortable enough with their inside information that the person with the greatest value in the future is in the position to win the fight. Because kind of like the Bob Arum, the thing with Don King, where Don King walks in with the champion and he walks out with the champion no matter what. Same thing goes for Top Rank. They walk in having both fighters, but they don't want to go out the ring with their value, with the combined value of the two diminished, right? You want to go out of that fight with a net gain in the value, in the combined value between the two fighters. So in the case of like a Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez, right? They have a guy who's reached his peak on the way down, a 5 in Vasily Lomachenko that might be sliding down to a 4. But then we've got a guy like Teofimo Lopez who could be who's a 4 that we believe we can actually get up to be a 5 if they win this fight. But then people are still going to go like Lomachenko. So, but if Teofimo loses, right, then Teofimo Lopez is going to drop from a 4 to a 2. Lomachenko still stays at a 5, so the 5 and the 2 winds up being 7. But if Teofimo Lopez loses or Lopez wins, you might get a combined value of 9 out of the two of them. And that's the equation and the reason why I say when this fight versus Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. gets made, Terence Crawford versus Jose Ramirez actually gets made, look for funny shit to happen, dog. Because, Bob Arum, like I said, wants to come out with more value between the fighters after the fight than he had before it. And a win for Terence Crawford does not accomplish that for him. So anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.